Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Laurent Fisch, a renowned insolvency lawyer with a career marked by landmark assignments like the Lehman Brothers liquidation in Luxembourg. And he recently had a dynamic shift into filmmaking. He has extensive experience both as a local deeply rooted in Luxembourg's hybrid culture and as someone who is engaging with international perspectives. And I'm very excited today to explore the themes of cultural integration, personal paradoxes, and the art of negotiation. Welcome, Laurent.
Thank you very much, Mengxi. Very nice introduction.
Yeah. So, Laurent, first of all, could you briefly share a little bit about your journey from managing large insolvency cases to embarking on the current filmmaking path? And what inspired you to explore these very different, diverse fields? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, of course. I don't think it's a secret, but I'm 57 now. So fast forward from my 30s on, when I was a young corporate lawyer in Luxembourg, I went into a number of different directions on my journey in the law. And finally, probably like 15 years ago, found my niche, or my niche as they call it, which was insolvency law, and where, as you rightly said, I handled a few interesting and big cases. That was all part of the initial plan that I probably made myself when I was, when I had to make the choice what I wanted to do or what I wanted to become in my life. The more creative things that I'm very excited about now have just come back in recent years. They have always been there, and I've tried to convince myself very much that my job was that I had a creative job, which is not untrue, but it's so much creative as it's a small box, to play in, and you can be very creative, and many people do that probably much better than I do. But there is more, it's you can express yourself in basically everything, I believe, but it's easier if you pick something like filmmaking or music making or singing or laughing or making other people laugh. It's just more. It's easier to get the impression and to get the feeling for yourself that you're doing what you really like to do. And for me, it's an urge. It's something that is not urge sounds a bit too urgent, but it's something I need to do. It's something I can't do without. So I think it's a matter of finally, I think it's a matter of getting older, and with the age, starting to try to combine things that were uncombined before, and you would be, like creative in your free time, in your spare time, and then you would be nice with your family, and then like now it's like coming together in a way, and you can say like, I'd like to do my work or my daytime occupation, which is actually a very nice expression. I like it a lot because it doesn't have this, you need to have a paycheck, you need to have everything. So this daytime occupation, I wouldn't be unhappy if it had more creative aspects and if I could spend more time on podcasting and film planning more than filmmaking. So just to be fair to your audience, if they are, trying to find my creations, no, they're in the making. They are they are in here
to put it out. Right now.
Yeah.
So part of it is also finally coming to term with I have to do this.
And again, I'm not sure how this sounds for someone your age or someone younger than me, but you tend to, or at least I tend to run or become tired of things that I convinced myself of for a very long time that were part of my life, like appearing like this or doing this or having just any metric of success or social recognition.
Yeah.
And with time, it's not funny after a while. It doesn't really give you anything back.
Yeah.
So then you might as well stop it, and you go like, yeah, okay, I guess there is other things that I like more than having these, collecting these moments of fame, glory, whatever it is, and for me, I probably did that for quite a long time, but then I grew, I think, a little tired of it.
Okay, but this thing of chasing, I guess, external validation, you realize, okay, it's hollow and it doesn't bring true fulfillment. And then you start to look inward to see like what you really enjoy doing. And then like now start to come to terms with it and try to express it through your creations.
Yes.
Is that fair?
It's easier for me absolutely. I think that's exactly how it went. The validation from the outside world is something that is very helpful because it helps you, in your choices, provided that you want to remain in the box of where these validation signals go to, and again, it's probably experience, another word for age or time passing, that shows you that the people that validate you at a given moment, they tend to disappear, and you try to, or at least I would probably have tried to replace him with someone else with a similar feature. So you're actually blind to the change of others because the validation is not a validation. It's something that you have put in place to feel comfortable. So once you get over that, I think then it's becoming more interesting and easier to say like, okay, so what is it that I really, really want? And that's a difficult question, and I don't think that the answer for me is filmmaking or being creative. That's not the answer. That is just like an expression of exactly. It's like a means to try walking in a different direction that's somehow makes me feel good and happy. I'm still this. Does it feel good? Or am I just bored, or do I even not, or does it hurt? So I think that's
to embrace that side of you. Yeah. But was there things in the law career that you actually enjoyed, or how did you like first went into it? Was it because of you wanted prestige, or was it because it's something that people do in your family?
I think it's a difficult question because I have to wind back my memory. I'm not sure exactly why I did it, but I think I was pretty clueless as to what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean,
who is not? You can't blame people for being clueless. And I had several ideas, but like words or job descriptions I had thought about like once or twice. So that were my ideas. I was tempted at one stage. I remember to go into economics and business kind of stuff, and then I was afterwards I was influenced by a good friend of mine who wanted to become an architect because they had a long tradition of architects in their family. And I was like, yeah, that would be great. I would like to become an architect. And then I wanted to go back to economics for some other reason, and it was too late to register at my school. And then I read law. Is it good? I mean, I'm not a legal scholar. I cannot pride myself with any specific knowledge about aspects of the law that other people wouldn't. People don't come to me for my understanding or my analysis of legal rules, or knowing stuff by heart, or being able to give expert advice on everything or on certain things. That's never what I did. But yeah, law is fun if you can allow yourself to practice it in a way that is slightly compatible with your kind of how you work and what you like. So the contact with the people is very important. The method that you choose, like not going into family law, because I was at that time, I was very much afraid of the drama and the strong emotions, and I stuff that I didn't want to handle. So I just keep it simple, just plain. Just have stuff that's dealing with money. At worst, someone loses money. That's not a problem. I don't want to hurt anyone. Like big time.
Yeah.
Which is on the one hand, it's a nice thought, but on the other one, is also a very selfish one, because you say I don't want to take responsibility for what I'm doing, in a way. So I'm not sure. I probably forgot your question, but
no, it's good. So what do you think prevented you from embracing that side, the creative side of you, while you were in the law profession for many years, and then you finally started recent years to explore that side?
I think that I was very much a product of my time and of my generation and of Luxembourg as a culture. Being a young man in those days, the percentage of people that were how to say, encouraged to go to university was quite small. Like according to normal standards, most people in my final years could have gone to university, but just a few went there. And that's Luxembourg at that time. So I would be one of the ones, because I'm a man, and I was my school efforts were sufficient, and I had some skills. So it was normal for me to go to university. And at that time, the general options for someone who would not have a scientific mind would be to go either into law, economics, with a view to work for the maybe the banking sector, or work for the public administrations in Luxembourg, which is still a big employer for local Luxembourgish people. So that's how I was trained, and I think that I did not want to be different from the other kids. I did not have the courage to embrace anything too excessively artistic, or even I had friends that were like interested in art or interested in politics, and they were much more active, and they are still today. And I wasn't at that time. I was I was interested, and I was probably also not unpleasant, but I was just there, and I enjoyed it. So I was pretty clueless, but I guess that's okay.
Yeah. So in a way, I think, looking back, even though you said you didn't go into the artistic pursuit during your career as a lawyer, but in a way, you must also look back with some gratitude, because at least it provided stability and financial, especially financial stability, to create this safety net.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that I was not complete in my answer, but that was the other aspect. I mean, I remember one thought that I had when I was 19 or something like that, 19 or 20, very young. I said, like, it would still have been time to change the course of my studies or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was convinced. I remember that thought. I was convinced that I would be unhappy if I would choose something more interesting, like educational job, or I had something about I wanted to do something with children's education, and I had another idea of being a psychologist. I even thought of becoming a priest very briefly. Yeah, just as a matter of challenge. And then I imagined myself being surrounded by my buddies, my friends, or the people around me, and how difficult it would be for me to live with not being on their level of wealth, recognition, prestige. I was aware of this, and I thought for myself very clearly, that's something you will not do, because you will be miserable, and then you will become bitter, and then you get on everybody's nerves. It's something that that was. It wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't. The last part is probably something I added over time.
Yeah.
But that was one, at least in my mind, that was one reason why I excluded a number of jobs at that time, knowing that I needed to go through this, having, complying with the expectations and doing the normal stuff and being a good boy and earning, money and having a family and, marrying, having kids, building a house, all that kind of
external
normal. Yeah. And you're right. There's nothing intrinsically bad about it at all.
Yeah, I have to say, I personally went through the completely other route, and yeah, to struggle as a starving artist is also not pretty, I think. But yeah, so it seems like for you there's this underlying thing of wanting to fit in when you were even younger. But
Yeah.
for me, I was like my personality is completely different. I was very rebellious. Like, I refused to fit in. Therefore, I'm like, okay, I'm going to art and doing something else. And then I went through this, like, I graduated college. I didn't know what I should do. And then I learned how to express myself, but no one cares. Yeah, and then went through this period of going back to engineering school, and then, okay, finding a job now in Luxembourg. And finally stabilize and then start to build on top. So yeah, that's I think two very different perspectives. And then I don't know, if you look back from your journey, do you think you would have chose the other way?
It's really not the way my brain works to think back and say, like, how could I should. I don't care very much about the choices I made and the consequence. I mean, I do. I recognize and I acknowledge that a lot of what is today is rooting in my own past or in generally in the past. No, I wouldn't have changed. As possible as it is to answer this question, I wouldn't have changed, and I'm pretty convinced that even if I had changed something, the overall flavor of my personal path, from the proverbial Martian observer, would be exactly the same. You can't get rid of, if you have this urge to say no and not to fit in, for instance.
Yeah.
It's a gift, and you can keep it, and you can work on it, and you can put it in a drawer for 30 years, and then you take it out and you find your you find the best job possible, where everyone is grateful for you saying no in the name of all the others. You know, I think it's just it's really, yeah. The more I think about it, the more it is not about, for me at least, working on myself and you know, like improve this and improve that and tune my capabilities. It's just really creating sufficient number of opportunities to hopefully find something that fits you, you know, rather than you fits the world. And you know, and it's so difficult, you know. It's the job descriptions that we are offered, that are on the, you know, that are officially available, they are not very helpful, because they force, whether you are a lawyer or whether you are an artist, in categories that don't really exist. They are, you know, you can say that, but like, what is an artist? I mean, we can recognize people who, you know, spend their time, energy, and devote everything to the creation of their works. Yeah, they are artists, but you know, like, that's the easy one. But then, if you're like being creative in a different way, or a little less, or on a different level, you know, it's this for art, and I find it is a real trap to convey the idea that you need to be miserable and needy to deserve a recognition as an artist.
Yes,
it's crap, you know. It's just like, that's boheme, you know. It's a myth that rich people like to enjoy when they buy the works. They're like, yeah, he had nothing or she had nothing, and then he made these you know, these super graffitis or whatever paints artworks in her garage or in some, you know, improbable place, and then I bought it for, you know, 300,000 or whatever. You know, that's a good story for you know, for a cocktail party, but I don't think that most artists would tell you that they can live from, and that they can work properly just from thin air.
Yeah,
it's not a reality. It's crap.
Yeah, I think the financial aspect is also very important, and to find one's place in the world to sustain their work long term as well. And I want to talk a little bit about your personal background and growing up through this Luxembourg as the cultural backdrop. And Luxembourg is a very unique and hybrid country. And growing up, every Luxembourgish speaks at least 4 languages. So what is that experience like, surrounded by a mix of cultures and languages? And how do you think that shaped your identity?
I think that the Luxembourg is indeed, I agree with you. It's an interesting place, but it's an interesting place when you have your perspective. Someone who is not from Luxembourg is coming to Luxembourg, then it's interesting. If you live in Luxembourg and you've been raised here, it's as dull as any other place. You just you know, you're dying to see something different, or you know, so it's nothing. It's the normality is what you have around yourself. So I think it's difficult if you're young before, and I was not lucky enough, or you know, to travel extensively when I was in high school, or you know, like live in other places, or you know, travel the world with my parents. That was not my life. So I did not know about other places in great detail, other than for leisure and vacation, maybe from time to time. So I think that makes it hard to compare your own development to your own in this place, compared to another development that you know, you would have undergone in another place.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to
I get. Maybe let's explore this question through the contrast of how I grew up and how I think I observe is so different from how Luxembourgish grew up, because I grew up in one single culture, and we speak, like, people around me speak the same languages, we celebrate the same holidays, we do the same things, and we have very similar world views. And then it's not until like when I was 17, I went to the US, that I realized there's people thinking very differently, and that's very different from how I think. And then, okay, after I moved to US, I moved to more places, and I realized, okay, each environment has instilled something to its people. But I have never been in a place such as Luxembourg where growing up, you automatically have to speak 4 languages. And then you're surrounded by different cultures all the time. So how do you decide what is your identity?
I think just to it's a good question. The answer is actually quite simple. So when you described your life, living in one culture with one language and one, that's basically also my life. That's my life.
Okay.
So the focus when you're a kid, when you grow up, is your parents, your friends, your school class, your teacher. It's all the distributors of values that you have around you. And that was true when I was young, and it's still true today to a large extent. So you get exposed to other cultures. You get exposed to people that look and speak different, and that share different values, or have different values, or have different holidays. But you don't really do anything with it. It is just there.
Information.
It's information, and even less if your parents don't invite you to consider how interesting it is that other people do it another way. You will even not notice it. So I think the life in Luxembourg of a kid in Luxembourg and the life of a kid in any other place is probably very much the same, and you're not exposed to cultures just because they are there. They are around.
They're around, but they're not necessarily matter to you specifically.
Exactly, they don't matter to the specific person. As for the languages, it can become a tool for opening up and understanding different cultures and traveling the world and doing this and doing that. But it's just the potential. It can become that tool. Learning the languages as a young local is just a feature of being Luxembourgish. And you don't know that other people, don't do that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a difference. You can learn all the languages in the world. You don't feel one bit more international. It's weird, but it's so the French and the German are, and the way they are taught, don't invite you to get further interested in another culture. French, for the moment, at least in the now time, is a language that is being taught by people that speak very good French, very fluent French. They've all studied in France. They have spoken French their whole life long. So compared to many other places where you're being taught French, the quality of the teaching is very high in Luxembourg. France is also, I'm just giving an example, France is also a neighboring country, and Luxembourg has taken over for historical reasons and cultural proximity, and being all in the same region, at least to some extent, has so much in common, and yet it's not sufficient, even if the teachers or whoever try to, promote cultural openness, that doesn't happen. It's nothing that comes from, that is living from the presence of French being spoken around you, French people being around you. You do not automatically, or for that reason, as a Luxembourger, but also probably, to my defense, in other, if you had another nationality, you're not, average people are not interested in what's happening around them, and it's more a nuisance because they don't speak the language that you speak, than something of interest or something that you want to study or, get to know better. That's this curiosity. Many people don't have it, and they're just like overwhelmed by. And then
life.
Life also, and as a result, in Luxembourg, you have a very high number of young people that have been taught. So learning French starts at the age of 7, 8, and up to the age of 19 or whatever your age is. Every day of the week you have a little bit of French, or you can't get rid of it. And the system, and people can write and they can read complicated books and become but very few people have the urge to express themselves in French or practice French, and the French doesn't sound good and they hate to use it.
Interesting.
Like, not the same with English, because that's the cool language.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
In Luxembourg.
Yeah, here in Luxembourg, it has become the cool language, and kids, very young, at a very young age, without having had a single lesson of English, they can watch YouTube videos because it's everywhere now. So that's really cool. But so what I'm saying is that the appearance or the sentence, "Oh, you're learning all these languages, that must be wonderful." Yes, for some it's wonderful, but for most people it doesn't make any difference at all to what you have described, where everyone speaks one language and you speak exactly also one language. There are 3, 4 more that you learn during your daytime job being a student, but all and it's not part of the So the physical presence of foreigners today is I'm saying today because I was raised when from the age of 8, when I started like having precise memories, 8 to 12, I lived in a small village, and out of a class of 20, we would have 2 or 3 foreigners from France or from Belgium, and then some people from Portugal, and 1 Spaniard, I think. So that was probably for standards in other countries that would be many foreigners, but it was very Luxembourgish, and these people were not, these students were not being treated well by the teacher, not particularly well. Well, we had a very unpleasant and untalented person that was trying to teach us stuff. So, but it's not. Yeah, it's you're not surrounded by again, it's what I said before. If you don't interact and you're not interested in the difference and how do you do things and what is this and how can I taste, you don't get anything out of it. And that's not how most people are. Eventually, yes, that's a trait of our humanity, being interested in other people, caring, and being a little bit curious. But that's not like the general trait that is most enhanced by the educational system in Luxembourg or elsewhere. Where just do your learn your stuff and then that's it.
So it seems like to me, as I'm talking and interacting with a lot of expats now in Luxembourg, it seems like Luxembourg has become more and more international, from attracting not just other European countries, but also like other countries around the globe. It seems like from my conversations, there seem to be a Luxembourgish and expat gap.
Yeah.
So, first of all, do you think it's real? And if it's real, how, from your perspective, do you see it changed throughout your life?
I'm certain there's more than one gap. There's probably a number of gaps between, depending how you define the different communities and groups and what ages you choose. I think what is true if you work in Luxembourg City or in if you go to the university in Ash, in Belval, you're surrounded by so many people from so many different countries and origins. That's amazing. I think it's just having that around you, if you enjoy that, is very liberating, because it's Luxembourg is a very small place, so it doesn't have the number of people it takes to create something where everyone just feels like relaxed and chill, because the place is so big. It's not a Berlin, it's not a London. It's a small provincial place, but it is populated by many people from many different places, and they get along peacefully. Most of the time, it's nothing. It's not an issue. But then again, there's a lot of there's probably as many gaps as you have people that consider themselves belonging to one circle rather than to another circle. And I'm not sure what your experience is, but I don't think that the expat is a group of itself. There's like ideas that you would find among people that are expats, like Luxembourg is a great place for professional opportunities. That would be like one thing everybody would think, and then they would say like, oh, the Luxembourgers, they suck a bit because it takes enormous amount of time and energy to get them to open up and just say hello and be friendly and speak English to me, or try to whatever, speak Luxembourgish to me. Many people try to learn Luxembourgish, and so I think, but beyond that, there is probably not that much of an interaction if you take people outside of their natural group. I know a few people from Greece, and they don't mind having young professionals going out with the guys from Italy, but it's like it's South of Europe clan. That's how they it may be coincidence, but then Asian people you don't tend to see a lot if you go out in bars and pubs and restaurants in Luxembourg, maybe tourist groups, but Asian people, I don't know where they are, but they are not very visible. I haven't seen you in town. And then I don't know how the cultures are different in all the places. So you can have a club of all the Asian people, but then you wouldn't probably go out with your with the other guys from Malaysia or Japan, or because these are big countries and it's a different culture, and it's nothing really to. So I think it's a shortcut to say that there is a gap when you look at the diversity that you find on both ends. And on the Luxembourgish side, it's the same. If you cut the pyramid, the age pyramid and the gender pyramid, there's no gender pyramid, but just if it depends very much, I think, where you are in your life, to have like a for me, it has changed a lot. My contact with other people, it's evolving all the time, but it's evolving just through my lived experience. So it's nothing that there's really intrinsically true about it. It's just like very. So I was lucky enough to have I was always attracted by people who are not from Luxembourg. It's like a curiosity thing again.
Yeah.
It was also, for me, it was the most efficient way to get some good training of foreign languages, basically English, because there was no internet at that time, so no one was, English was something you had to, there was one radio station once in a while, they from RTL, it was called RTL Community or something like that. So you could hear a little bit of English, but there was no, you could not train your ears to. So my good friends from then, and still good friends from now, come from Denmark and from the UK and from other places. And yes, I've always liked that. I've always enjoyed that, and I've always tried to. I haven't, but we were just exchanging. How do you do Christmas, and then having Christmas dinner.
So I think the curiosity is a very important aspect, and both sides.
Yeah.
No matter which small group they're
Exactly.
in, should have this curiosity to get to know each other.
Yes.
Do you think, like you described, that you are personally very curious? Do you think that's a common thing among the people in Luxembourg or the people around you? Do you think there's enough mutual interest of like bridging some of these gaps?
I don't. It's difficult to say, because the gap that you're describing, I think, is like more scientific reality than something that is lived by the people. It's very easy to ignore someone who is next to you, or he's living next to you, and he's, also a foreigner, or someone coming from somewhere else. If there is, unless it's people who are like mutually attracted for, reasons of mating or meeting for other, like, there is no, I don't think that the curiosity itself will just bridge all the gaps. There may be other ways why you're attracted, because you're attracted to another person, because you're attracted to people in general, because you like to you don't want to be alone, or you want to talk and speak. So so I think it's I think that the Luxembourgians are exactly like everybody else. You will have a few people that have a natural inborn curiosity to meet other people, or to whatever their the focus of their attraction or their curiosity is. And you have that in, I think, almost everywhere. And most people, I don't know, I don't have statistics, but most people are not overly concerned, and they can have a very great week without speaking a foreign language. And and if that's not part of your daily life, of your routine, it gets rusty, and then it becomes painful, and then it gets complicated, and then at some stage it's all all the languages you learned and you never used are just going down the drain with you. So to speak, socially speaking. So I don't think that there's anything here that is different. I think what makes Luxembourg different is that it seems to have like it has this attraction on people. It has it has an appeal of a place where you have your shot at it. You can do it. But and more on that later maybe. But I think that's really why people come. And just to say that probably the urge for expats, and I'm not trying to overgeneralize, but the focus is on the career, and probably the next thing that comes close to career is like relationship building, and then choosing useful people for your career, or for your I did exactly the same thing, so it's nothing bad about it. But I don't think that just because you come to Luxembourg, you have a different degree of sensitivity or curiosity per se automatically just because
Yeah.
you come here. No, you come here because you have a reason to come here, and it may be constrained because you have to, or because you it's where your next job assignment was. So there is so much more than just like, it's not like the Erasmus student who's going, oh, you go there, and then you say, oh, cool, that's interesting. I will find that. I'm just imagining. I haven't been a student like that, but then you can explore, and then you can. So I think that the expectations from a Luxembourgish perspective, and that I hear sometimes around me when it's like, yeah, but people, the foreigners, the expats, the immigrants, expats and immigrants, it's interesting how close these things are, and in the mind of the people, and how big a difference it makes, just using different words. But they're not interested. They don't make an effort to learn our language and our culture. And then you go like, that's all very easily said. But how, what is your perspective, and why do you expect anything from people just because they have a different passport? Why should they be more interested in my culture or in my language than I am in theirs, just because they are here? So I think it's a degree of, I fully agree that if I was abroad, or when I was abroad, or when I go abroad, my tactic is to dig into it, get to know the people, try to speak the language.
Yeah.
I like that. That's me, but I do that because it's me.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants that, and not everybody has so I think it's just, it raises very important issues. Like expats is one thing, because that we the connection with, or the word has a business-like connotation. It's so if you have immigrants, it's a different story. So these people are supposed, or in the way you imagine them, they could be not wealthy, not in for the Luxembourg dream, but just here because they landed here, stranded here, or as other people would say, because they want to, benefit from the wealth that is here, something like that. And then if you transpose this idea that we as humans, Luxembourgish or others, actually cannot expect, or should not be in like an entitlement position to expect something from the guests, other than just behaving in a socially acceptable norm and not making a fuss, and but other than that, accept my culture, speak my language. It's a personal choice thing to a large extent, as far as I can see it. So there is not this. You don't. There is no. You don't get a permit when people visit your country to make them look like you. This assimilation kind of thing. I think it's weird. It's strange, and particularly coming from the hosts, whether they are Luxembourgish or German or French, for their respective countries. It is probably another way of saying to the people, I don't want you here because you are not where I would like you to have. And if they were there, they would find something different. That's just me thinking aloud.
Yeah, I think there's, Luxembourg is a little more special, in my opinion, than other bigger countries, because inherently Luxembourgish are more adaptable to the outside. Like, I think inherently Luxembourgish has to rely in a way on the immigrants to research the technology, or working in the banking sector, or like to contribute their knowledge. Whereas maybe a bigger country, they might have big enough of a talent pool to not care that much about immigrants. So in a sense, I feel like in in Luxembourg, it's more essential to try to integrate everyone with the locals as opposed to another bigger country. And I think the sense where you were talking about, it's a personal choice to speak the language or not. Whereas in Luxembourg, it's almost like a necessity from both parties to try to integrate with each other.
I think I agree. If to the extent that this is about human interactions, if you want to connect with other people, you need to have this flexibility, and there is some truth in the. I share your opinion that if you have a small country that is heavily relying on people from the outside world, the first thing is not to demonize them or say like, oh, they're foreigners, or be scared of them. So I think there is like a certain there is an openness, like an openness to, and it goes beyond the tolerance, because now it's part of the story that we tell ourselves, how open and how great and how international we are. Great is just it slipped my mind. But I'm not. It probably depends on the. It would be very interesting to see how many people of young age, Luxembourgers and foreigners, how they interact and how much they benefit from each other. I would assume a lot more, because they don't think like that. They just think like, probably, oh, this is my boy or girlfriend. It doesn't speak my language. Let's still play together, and then just find something to make it work. Then the kids, during when they go to school, they tend to be quite separated, other than for maybe it's different. Maybe my experience is coming from a not a remote spot in Lux. There's no remote spot, but I'm coming from the eastern part of the country, close to the German border, and the number of foreign people working there and kids going to school is much lower than in Luxembourg City or in the south of Luxembourg. But so my point was that, so imagine how they interact with each other, and then you have the other, and I think they are doing okay, but they will start to behave like adults, and they're not really interested to mix with the boys or girls from any other country. It will be difficult. So you will see that these groups form, and it's not like a happy automatic mix. There is no such a thing. It's hard work. Or there needs to be an intention to do it.
Exactly.
Or a framework that favors this. And then when you have people your age, young professionals, it's all about being young, being professional, and living the dream. And there's so much more, this middle ground that you find, which is the very rich and exuberant party scene in Luxembourg. Everybody's complaining about it not being there being no such a thing. But when you're young, you know what you want to do. It's Friday. You're not recording a podcast. You're going out. You're having a party. You're going to have dinner. That depends on the taste. So I don't want to say that this is how everybody does it, but when you're young, you go out, and that's the focus. And the fact that people come from different places it's a nice story for a cocktail, or to write back home to your parents, or think, oh, that was a nice evening, But it's all about meeting, dating. It's normal. People are really, attracted to each other because that's how they were in university. They were, it's a normal thing. But then when you look at people who start to have kids and have a family, who are maybe more isolated, they may have started to feel having a hard time to connect to the Luxembourgish other communities or parents in the schoolyard. It's not so easy because there is no interest. Yes, you have your child in common, and maybe that that helps a lot. Typically, people can bond through that. And then the old people, the old foreigners in Luxembourg, not so many. It's many going home, saying like, oh, I've worked here, I lived the Luxembourgish dream. I've built whatever, many roads or houses for people coming from the south, immigrants from the south. And now the last few years I want to live, with my old friends, my childhood friends, and they go back to Portugal, Spain, Italy, or the countries that they come from. And so I think, just to say that there's probably more than one gap. There's probably more than one way to interact, and there's these external circumstances. I think that's really the point. These external factors that shape the way that we interact and how interested we are, and how interested we not are, and then it boils a lot down to, I think, the personality of people like you or me. We manage to somehow meet, greet, and exchange some normal things that convey the message. Oh, I'm interested. I see you're there. Oh, that's cool. What are you doing? This normal stuff. But it's unfair to I think to put that, like, not everyone should do that. I think it's just like it's up to the people. What do they want?
It's true. I think I agree with that, but it seems like people do genuinely crave these deeper conversations. I think that's how people create connections and create the sense of belonging. And the sense of belonging is very important. And then, like, if I reflect back and think, what does it really mean, is really to the connections we make through the ideas, through with the people, through with the culture, and through with the place. So I think this is something that everyone craves, but maybe they're not really getting it a lot, at least in Luxembourg or through the expat communities that I've talked to. What do you think are some things, actionable things, that we as people can do, or initiatives that we can do to try to I guess make an impact beyond just ourselves? Maybe you can talk about the projects you are planning on doing.
I think it thank you. I think it basically boils down to putting people in the same room, and not lock the door. But we have a superb capacity to interact, to start interacting with each other. Even if you're not interested in the other person, if you're not interested in the culture, you will still interact. There's so many things that we do without noticing it, obviously, and that's the beginning of a conversation. So you remember that we met in a place where there was like an open invitation for everyone interested in filmmaking could join, and there was a very diverse bunch of people from many different nationalities that came there. And after just a few sessions, the links were made, and now that the project is over, the links were unmade, but they can be but they can be reinstated or not.
Like how we made connection, I think, many months after.
Exactly. So I think that the creating supporting spaces that are open for many people and that are also attractive for many people is the key to, getting people together and getting them to exchange their views on Luxembourg, the weather, the state of the roads, or whatever it is. However you start your conversations, and afterwards you go into deep. So, and the more you think about it, where do you meet people? Well, you meet people where people have like an obligation to be at the same time. If you are free of your movements, you can run around your city here or another city for many hours. And if you don't have the strong enough appetite to start talking to strangers, nothing will happen. They will all look at you, and you will look at them. And I'm like a shy person when I go to foreign places. Even at my old age, I wouldn't talk to everyone and say like, oh, okay, can you show me around? So I would like to do that. I know that it would work, but it's not me. Okay. It's not me.
You seem more extroverted to me.
Yeah, but I yeah. Well, thank you. I think that's a nice compliment if I can hide it so well. No, I'm actually quite shy in talking to, I don't know why, but for some reason. So the way I think that you could like good policies, and policies really, I think that's the key word. For me, a policy is something that anyone who is in charge makes up to get some results. People being happy, people being on time, people being productive, people being meeting, whatever. Anything is a policy that is the product of a thought, like a planning process, which we really call that's politics. That's what it's about. That's being managing the lives of the citizens. And not managing them in a way like micromanage them, so like, oh, do and don't do this and don't do that, but just creating spaces that allow people to find their way and to find what we said before, like if you are this kind of person, where is your space in here? Where can you find it? Well, it should be there, because otherwise the space is not well designed. Or
how would you construct such a space where you can encourage genuine discussions? Because you can also construct a superficial space where like the superficial things get to talk about, which I think is not really making that deep connection that people need.
I think it depends. Some people like, probably if you make an interview amongst your friends and you say like what and you ask them what it is that they really most enjoy in whatever given evening, or what was their best evening in the past few weeks or so, some people are just happy to stand next to another person having a drink and just nodding from time to time, or exchanging niceties about small things. And other people need to to really get deep down into the psyche and say like, oh, I need to do all the so right. I'm not sure how that's it's difficult to find. I think all the places are good. A pub is a good meeting place, as is any other place. But what I have in mind in order to, and that's the project that I'm working on now with a few colleagues. Yes. It's called Dialogue East, and it's a non-for-profit, and the idea is to create spaces, not just physical spaces, but any kinds of spaces where ideas or thoughts or opinions can be exchanged. So the way we want them to be exchanged is that the exchange should be polite, and it should be respectful of the fact that the other person may not share the same opinion.
I think
so I think that's and that no opinion, well, they're very strange and very 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 stupid opinions indeed, but that's not what this space is about. This space is about, tell me and I will listen, and you listen when I speak, and try to we're trying to not to convince the other person, but to make the other person understand what where we're trying to get to, where we're coming from. And the tools for that are, just the way that, the tools that increase the quality of a discussion, if it's like completely left to, if you could write down the rules in a bigger group, it is probably to say you have a limited speaking time. Everyone has the same limited speaking time. The fact that you are of a different gender or no gender or whatever does not influence your speaking time or your order. It's just simple things where, you could say like, well, everybody should be able to speak his mind. Well, in a world that is dominated by the ones that scream loudest, very often man or just, aggressive people, that's an advantage that you're having. The plain level field, is that what you call it, would be to say like, okay, no, we have the same rules for everyone, and then it's easy to say like to laugh at this, like, oh, how stupid, I was in the middle of my sentence. Well, yes, it looks weird, but that's what it takes to implement. The minimum that we need to have him, her, and all the others be heard. So I think that's the kind of simple things. And then the other thing is like, if you're working on themes rather than, many people, and I'm trying not to fall into this trap tonight, but, like it's like a therapy when you speak about yourself. You go like, oh yeah, I'm a great person. And then you start, going, that's all good. But a good discussion is probably one that starts at a predefined, pre-agreed point of, on the map of matters that can be of interest. So keep it like focused. So the Dialogue East, what we are planning to do is to take one small community and speak about in which we live, and try to show aspects through a podcast that is not yet online, but I will send you a link and you can put it under
put it on the show notes.
Exactly. Yeah. So to have like themes like aging or belief or being young or protecting the environment, things, just normal subjects that can be interesting for people who have an interest in that. And then not being all of the same opinion is not a problem, but you can talk about it.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
Just like so it takes the stress away, and it's like and it's not like pushing people apart so that we think like we're all playing soccer and you need to be in either one team or the other team, but it's favoring the idea that you know everyone is smart enough to have his own ideas, but just to work on it.
To collaborate. It's a collaborative effort, which I think I deeply resonate with this idea of like putting people together and giving everyone the opportunity to speak and be heard. And then maybe something good come out. Which is, and then I think I used to study architecture. I think maybe I told you. To me, a space is also more than just the physical space we are in, but also like the structures, the emotional structures and the discussions that's happening around the space make this space the space. So I think this is the type of space making I resonate a lot with as an architect. And then this collaborative effort of letting, I think I came up with a nice sentence to it, is to promote individual self-mastery as a profound social act.
Wow. I have to take that in now.
So
yes. Yeah, that's very,
Because,
very nicely put.
yeah, because no one really need the other person to shout at you how you should think. What
Yeah.
we can do is to have a conversation about it. And maybe through this conversation, you will go home tonight and reflect with your own brain and take whatever you think is good and leave out whatever. Because I think everyone is, yeah, like you said, smart enough to decide for themselves
Yes.
what's good or bad.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the problems that's happening nowadays is one person shouting at the other person, like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this.
Yeah.
Which sometimes might be justified, but still, it's not a respectful and genuine conversation. It's not a conversation, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's not. So, yeah, I very much agree with what you said. It's so first of all, I mean, this space idea, the idea of having a space, is so. I think that's what I have started to appreciate more and more. To go places that mean something to me. They don't need to be physical. Very often they are. Sometimes they are not. I know a bunch of people who meet in different spaces, but wherever they go, it's the spirit, and you can feel it. I mean, if you're sensitive and if you know the people, you have connections. It doesn't matter where they are. And then the other thing is that, yes, just it's so easy to say, like, to say, oh, the other person or all the other persons are stupid, or half of Americans are, they must be out of there. That's not helpful. It's not true.
Yeah.
Scientifically, it's not true, it's not helpful, because it's exactly the same. It's just like a zero sum game, or whatever you call it. Nothing happens, nothing comes from it. So I think that's the mental connections, the physical connections, the what you exchange with someone when you talk to him or her is so much more. And as you said, like, you're giving part of yourself and you're taking part of the other person. And we are all capable of doing that, unless we have some, a disease that prevents us from having these feelings.
Yeah.
But most people probably don't suffer from such a disease. And, regardless of their level of intelligence, they are capable of understanding, oh, that's human interaction. Okay, I can, this like a little bit of trust, saying, okay, I don't have to be careful. And maybe you need to be careful sometimes with the same people, but not just, not just having these two boxes with me and my friends and then all the others is very helpful. And when you, in the project that we're building up now, we have intentionally tried to not choose the people that are going to be our guests based on their beliefs as we perceive them today, but just say, like, okay, this person is interesting for the community, and this person may attract some people that listen to us, and the discussion will be interesting because we will try to do our best, coming from where we come from, politically speaking, to not get into a some kind of a fight over words, this pointless thing, just trying to be really explaining what we mean, and trying to do the same effort when the other person, the other person says something, and he may not be trained in expressing his ideas, and say, like, but I like it when it's more like this. Genuinely trying to understand what is he or she saying. What is the fear? What is the what is the perspective? It's
Yes,
and that's
exactly.
really cool. Yeah.
And in a way, it's this podcast is born out of similar realizations of that fact to have, because I felt very disconnected. And then I started to think of ways of how can I make genuine connections and creating a space for that, and potentially share that to a bigger community. And then thus, like, this podcast is born, and I find it's very, very good for me to hear that, like, this is something that other people are also pursuing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And from my perspective, I find it very flattering that someone so much younger than me, has this, we know it in theory. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with gender, it has nothing to do with nothing. It's just something very, very human. And what you said, like, we need it. And if you decide for yourself that you want it and you know how to get it, well, just do and be happy.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of self-honesty to be honest with oneself. I think before I was even running from my own like fears of, okay, like, should I put myself out there? Like, should I, like, really afraid of doing something that really matters, somehow feels safer, because then that part of me will not be judged.
Yes.
Yeah. So there was also that aspect. And I think you also mentioned that you increasingly becoming more and more aware of other perspectives. Whereas maybe before you were in boxes, as you described. Could you tell us, like, was it a single big event in your life or a series of events that kind of woke you up to?
That's a good question. I think there was a need and an urge somewhere, and that was becoming more pressing with time, and all the time where I could not express my urge to do something more meaningful than what I did. You spoke about the honesty, like, you do your work well, you're getting paid for it. It takes some courage to say, my job is a bullshit job. I'm not useful for humanity. I'm not useful for anyone except my clients who pay me money. That takes some honesty, and it hurts a little bit, in your ego, because you're not a nurse. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I don't do anything really, really useful for anyone. I can find being a lawyer, I can write you how it's useful to the world, but I know it's not. Yeah. I know it's not. It's not under the the big thing, the line that you draw to make the final sum. It doesn't, at best it's neutral, but I think it's worse than that. So when you start to realize that on the one hand, and you have this pressing, this pressure building up, it just takes a moment, and then you can say, well, at that moment I realized, yes, but it's a moment in time, basically, because the pressure, it's just building up.
Okay.
So my moment, I spoke about this before in another show where I was even singing. It was a political thing, it was a beautiful scenery. I was on vacation with my family, and we were on a Greek island, and it was glorious. It was wonderful. It was like late afternoon or early evening, and the sun was going down, and we were coming there with a small yacht, like a sailing yacht, and we had our own skipper, and that was really, really cool. It was like a place in the middle of nowhere. It had been a long journey, so we were so happy to be there. And when we got on the land, it was not like a busy place. It was like nothing there, like one taverna and one one restaurant, and so, and there was a long queue of people standing there, and they were very quiet, and they were, with their suitcases. They looked very, very friendly, very normal, very calm. And then I understood that these people were refugees. They were coming from Syria. That was that time, and it was the first time that I was standing next to people with their lives and their suitcases and with their kids, and I could have walked up to each one of them and have a conversation about the weather, their kids, just normal people. And we all know in theory what it feels like when you meet normal people. But, when you see the normal people, the people exactly like you in a world very not exactly like yours, that's a bigger, that's a bummer. It's a shock. So it's the first time that I realized that. I realized how, how little it takes to have a peaceful, relaxing, wonderful life, or not having it. And it's not based on merit. It's based on statistically where you're born and what time of the century it is.
Yeah.
And that is something that helped me wake up. It's like, no,
yeah,
they are
moment of reflection.
Yes. And it never, now I mentioned it a few times, but I'm still not getting emotional. But I really, it's so. I felt for the first time this. I found the words to say, but these people, they are really exactly the same. They are normal people, just normal. And people were like, yeah, I understand. Yeah, normal people. They were not aliens. I said, no. But, what I meant is it could be me standing there and it could be him standing in my spots.
Yeah.
And that's not the same for him and not for me. And we're all humans. So we're all in the same boat. And obviously we're not. I was in a bloody yacht and they were coming, from some, Coast Guard dumped them there. So that sounds, it's well, that made me realize. And then I said, like, okay, but I investigated after that a few other areas of where I was like mildly interested when I was young, like racism. That was a big thing when I was young. Like, there was the first time that there were people in France, politicians, that brought up that as a theme, and they were campaigning on racism. It's like, there is racism. People said, no, there's no racism. And they said, SOS racism. And yeah. So that was something that I still had in my mind. And then I fast forward, 30 years, I discovered with my new friends that nothing much had changed and no one had solved the problems while I was distracted by my, with my career building.
Yeah.
And then, I thought to myself, maybe I should just, help fix it, because no one has managed so far. And, I was really not looking there. And it was something I felt almost ashamed to think about, because it sounded like an old-fashioned problem, like something that had gone.
Yeah.
And the reality brought me back to the reality of the people around me and said, like, no, I'm suffering from this every day. And they told me, and it was not heartbreaking, but yes, it was heartbreaking, because it's like, how can you, this is making my friend's life so much more difficult than it should be, for no reason at all, for no reason that I can like emotionally connect to. It's just like, yeah, it's a, funny ideas that aim at something, but it's not doing any good to anyone. It's horrible. So I was then, I think, progressively admitting more and more of these big, big things that there is around us, to actually try and start to look at it and say, like, okay, this is not a place. Okay, wow. And, then I met a bunch of I went to find myself a bunch of people that I could relate to for discussing these things. I did it myself. So I went to people that are like politically active, and I said like, okay, here I am. And they said like, yeah, okay, so yeah, here you are. But at the end of the day, you're meeting a new group of people, and that was for me, it was the not very long ago, less than 10 years ago, it was the single most impressive moment, yes, because it helped me it forced me to open up to so many more people that I would never have spoken to, because they were not on my short list for being helpful for my career, or helpful for or looking good, being seen with him or with her. And I wasn't like really thinking like that, but I was acting like I was thinking like that. So I guess I was thinking like that. And then I had this this other strong moment was when I was I was walking around Luxembourg City with my new political friends, and they did not look like me. I was coming from my office, and they had accepted me despite my deceiving looks to be one of them. And I was having this. I was with these 2 or 3 people that looked wildly different from me, being like the normal, corporate guy, and these people looked like they had come from I don't know where, from some rally with banners and that kind of stuff. And I met a group of my lawyer buddies coming there, and it was so it was the first time where I saw, okay, I don't want to distance myself any longer from my new friends. I don't want to, that was my normal, that was my fear. That was my, I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to be finger pointed. Oh, look, him with the strange people. It was good.
You didn't care.
I didn't care any longer.
Yeah.
I cared, but in an interested way. So like, okay, what is their reaction now, and what are they going to say? And so this outing exercise for me, just political outing, which is really something very, very small, like people can out for so many things, but this is like not the biggest one. It cost me a lot of energy, but it also gave me a lot of strength. And it's really good. Feels good.
Yeah, it seems like very beautiful moments, especially the one where you were on the boat with your family, whereas like you see these refugees, you're in the same place, but completely in different places.
Completely, yes.
So that just like drastically, there's such a big gap between the socio-economic class, yet you're on the same boat, enjoying the same sunset. And then like there's something very deep and beautiful there that I think
some of the people that were standing there, I mean, the socioeconomic difference was probably not as big. They looked like very well educated. Well, they had their iPhones, the same that my kids have. They looked okay. But as you said, like 2 different worlds. They had to leave their family. They had to leave their house. They had to leave everything. They have, I don't know what ordeals they had in front of them and what they had past them. And you're standing there and you can look at yourself. I did not have the strength at that moment to start interacting. I was just like, I was happy that I at least realized, as you said now, the more I explain, the more I tell the story, the more I say like, yeah, absolutely. It's really, really powerful. But how many people have like a moment of grace where they say like, okay, I will open myself to this, because it's painful. It's not an easy one.
It's painful.
So it's very painful.
Look at yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And it's painful looking at yourself and looking at yourself being all full of pain for other people being unhappy, and it's just it's a big thing. But the more I think about it, the more I speak about it, and the more I grow old, I think that these experiences, the ones that somehow can be also unpleasant, or can be hidden under the the stuff that we hide away, not to disturb what we are doing on a daily basis, going to our job.
Self-image.
Self-image, and and then you see people around you who are not doing well, who it's freezing cold, and they sit there, and no one. I'm not saying that I have the power to do anything, fundamentally life-changing for anyone, but just realizing that every time I ignore someone, or I feign to ignore someone, I'm ignoring a human. I'm ignoring myself. I'm doing this to someone who is like me, and the mad life choices, or the fact that you're born in some shitty place, does not change anything about the fact that
you're human.
And being human is, it's something. It probably feels very different when you say this, and you, as an old white man, you can say like, well, we're all humans and you're a human. It sounds like you're giving a rubber stamp on the other person. You have the right to be human. And on the receiving end, people who are, victims of very racism or whatever it is, they use the same. You can imagine them saying, "But we are human. Don't do this. We are human." So I think like even this, we are all human. The perspective is so different, and trying to make your old white man brain put into the shoes of the person in front of you that is not on the receiving end, but on the victim on the other end, is difficult, but it's a useful exercise, because it tells you exactly what you said loud, but you don't fully understand. Yes, we're human. Yeah. Well, if you're human, that means there's a bunch of stuff we can't do to each other.
Yeah, I think it seems like, although it was painful probably for you to look back at yourself, and then really to examining the process, but it seems also, to me at least, because I had to also go through similar processes for the past year, it seems like only after the painful process, only beautiful things come out.
Yeah.
I feel like it instilled a sense of purpose in me. From my observation, maybe it's similar to you. You are more you're more brave to embrace the and then some creative projects, and actually making an impact in your community. It seems like it's
maybe I just have so much energy, and that's the way I that's my therapy of doing stuff. And my family says like, oh, another project. Oh, right, okay. You never have enough, right? No, maybe it's enough now. But on your other point that it needs to be painful, I think that I don't want to put words in your mouth that you didn't say, but I think that there is some truth to it. It's not the pain that makes it memorable or good afterwards, but it's what you discover. And if it's a meaningful thing, and you are, like I was, frustrated or surprised that you didn't find that out earlier, that has something sad to it, and something painful to it. It's just like looking yourself in the mirror, and I'm. You can be very happy and a positive person. I have. You don't need to. You don't. It doesn't need to hurt to be smart. But most of us don't realize stuff for so long, and then or for some time, and then when we realize it, it hurts a bit. So I think it's really like going deep into something, but not only, you know, I think you are thinking a lot in all different shapes and forms about problems, and we all do, but I think you do that very well. And then we also have this emotional thing that ties into our reflections,
Yeah.
and then there is like how we communicate our, you know, this frustration or this stress or whatever it does in us to other people will also, you know, echo back to us. So I think like we are like vibrating and receiving and sending out these vibrations. And when we figure something out, that's, I think it's typically it's an eye opener, and then afterwards you can be happy because you know that, okay, one box ticked, but the next, so there's so many boxes, which is the good news. So we're not running out of.
Yeah, to me, doing that process seemed to instill a sense of direction in my life. As in, I'm a very, like, I constantly work on different things, like, but before, I think I didn't really have a sense of purpose, I would say. Like, what's the meaningful thing for me to do? I had no idea. I just know, okay, I like to make stuff. I just make like this and that, and then like there's no direction. But after that process, I launched 2 projects that I really feel proud, and I feel like it's going to the right direction of making a meaningful small impact my way. I don't know if you can relate.
Yeah, I yes, I think the impact that you can act, the tangible impact, is the candy that we get for our efforts. It's probably not what we are, what you are, why you're doing it to get this rewards. But I think it's very, it's nice to see that you can make a difference. And again, I think with age, you tend to start, you stop underestimating. You really understand how a small impact that you have on one or several people around you, how far these ideas can travel.
Yes,
it's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing. So, and it's not like a promise or a guarantee, but when you are like slightly tense in what you're doing, and you're purposeful, and you touch people with your words or with whatever it is, it will travel a long way. And so the real power is there. So I think it's like, when you say small impact, I think, yes, it's like micro impacts, but it's really changing so much around you.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very strange thing to come to term with. It's like planting seeds, right? Like different ideas, seeds in your mind that maybe currently you're not ready to access. But for example, at the moment when you were on the boat with all the Syrian people, the seed has grown into, like, I'm sure it was somewhere in your brain, but seeing that like forced you to reflect on, okay, this is where these seeds meant.
I think it's a very useful image to use. We all have so many seeds in ourselves, and you know what you rightly said is like you're forced to realize, you're forced to look at it. You can't really look away. And then on the other hand, I think that my impact that I would like to make around myself, or one of the things that is important, is to get people that I like, that I care about, get them at least momentarily out of the denial, out of the idea that it doesn't make a difference what they do, and you know, and I genuinely believe that it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does.
It you know, and no one can, you know, give you, as I said before, and it's not a guarantee. It's not about being efficient, but it is actually quite efficient, whether we like it or not. So having other people, you know, adhere to your ideas, to your projects, to your, you know, come here, come with me. Why don't you come once? You know, it's just planting so many. It's planting seeds, but it's also, you know, giving opportunities to people to find other ways of, you know, making sense of their own existence, which I think is it's a, you know, it's an option, you know, it's like maybe you and then you see how many people, you know, and maybe just circling back to the expat community, at least, you know, the prejudice or the way that I see most young professional grown-ups from the expat community. You know, when I said before, you know, there is this focus on career building, which is, you know, signaled to them, to this group of people by everyone, by the employers, by the state, by media, by the local culture. Yes, you are here. You're the young. You're here to work. Blah blah blah. And that is like, and then some people would say like, yeah, it's like a golden cage, more or less. I don't know how golden it is, but it's a cage, certainly, because most of these people will have a harder time to break out at that stage of their development and do something that afterwards they might find meaningful.
Yeah. I think
it's a big dynamic, you know, it's a big powerful thing that drives them, and it's not it would be me, you, I think, in the same group, same reaction. It's just it's making things so much harder because you have like not a small seed, but you have like a big push from, you know, the corporate world or whatever it is, you know, your thing is, and that makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Not impossible, but difficult.
Yeah. So I can see that it's very difficult. And I want to explore some paradoxes. So professionally, you operate in a realm that often involves restructuring and redistributing wealth among the powerful people and the wealthy people. But as we're discussing now, you also associate with a very progressive politics. So how do you personally are reconciling these two seemingly contrasting parts? How does it play in your psyche right now?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And I get it a lot. It's like, okay, so you're doing this now. You're working with. So I don't work with other people's money. I work with big estates, and so I have everything. When I open the mouth and say a figure, it must be a million something figure. So that's very impressive for myself. Because, joking. But and then on the other side, as I said before, I know that a big part of the job I'm doing is not having an impact. You know, when you look at it from a little distance, immediately, yes, it has an impact. It will, you know, someone will be happy because he gets his money back, or someone will, you know, be able to have a good deal with me. That's an impact. But I mean, like an impact. Do I change something for the good? Like really, you know, is it? Okay. So that's opposed to the, you know, my quest for trying to understand things, not just with my brain, but also really understand them, is sometimes difficult. Most of the time it's not difficult, because there is like when we, at the very beginning of the discussion, we said like, I said that I did not think that an artist should go through the test of having nothing and being miserable and not recognized to become creative. So, and I think the same misconception is that because someone has progressive ideas does not mean or does not necessarily request that this person is the first one who would benefit from the politics that he's trying to redistribution of wealth, for instance, that he would like to promote. So it's like the next question I get then is like, well, you don't want to cut in your own flesh, like promoting higher, tax rates for wealthy people. And yes, I want to hurt myself. And then people say like, well, then just give your money away and leave the others alone. No, well, that's not the point. I want to change society. So the difficulty for most people, and myself included, is to how can you promote things that are seemingly not in your favor? Why would you want to pay more tax? Why would you enjoy paying tax to a government that is reasonably well trying to do meaningful things with the money that you give them, which is the case in Luxembourg, regardless of the government? It's not no one's stealing the money and running away with it. So there are efforts to do it, in the best possible way. You may like it or not like it, but the roads, the hospitals, the schools, public transportation, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So more of that and less of other things. So the answer really is that the world that I would like to live in, not me, but the world that I wish for my kids, or is a world that goes in a direction where me today would pay more tax because my power to contribute to a common project is bigger. I have more, I pay more, fine. I like that. And that's not to say, well, if you have too much, no, it's not about me having too much. It's about everybody. My idea is about everybody contributing in accordance with his capacities, contributive capacities. And everyone seems to agree in theory with this.
Yeah.
But then in practice, it's not like that at all. So, my political thinking helps me a lot to understand the work I'm doing, to see like where I'm operating, to what an extent that I benefit from the big economic activity that Luxembourg has created and has maintained for the past 30, 40, I don't know how many years, which is the banking sector and corporate trust world, this big universe. And I'm getting a part of that, so I'm tapping into that. I don't think it's the best choice for a society. I don't think it's the worst choice. Many people have.
You mean like the fact of choosing banking? For
promoting banking and finance and being an active in. How do you call this, tax optimization, which Luxembourg has always done, alongside other, it's not alone in there. But has it been good for me? Yes, of course. So how can I want to abolish many aspects of it? Well, because I don't think it's right. Well, then I should go somewhere else. Well, no, that's what they always do. They send you away. So like, if you don't like it, give the money, go somewhere else. No, I like here. I can do better than that with these ideas being implemented, which is not going to happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. But that doesn't really that's the other question I get a lot. So how can you believe in ideals that have so little political traction or attractiveness these days? And if you feel it doesn't really matter how much attraction it has. And that's true, I think, for every political orientation you can think of, from far left to far right, if there's such a thing as far left. it's not, if you feel it, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
You just, and that doesn't mean that, I may not be wrong on this or wrong on that. That's not the thing, but it's not, it's just tricks to get me off my what I want to do and what I want to achieve, to say like, oh, but you are here and you're there and you're driving this car and you're having this and you're ordering your stuff at Amazon. Yes, I'm a bad person. I do all these things, and yet does that strip me of the right to try to do it better, to improve myself and the life of others? And even if I didn't want to improve it for myself, just the life of others, what's wrong with that? Like, it's not so. So I think, to answer your question, this gap of appearances of trying to fight for the needy people and then not being needy yourself is not very complicated, because it's not a fight for the needy people, it's just a fight for the people. And what that is now my personal viewpoint, is that it's not I'm not trying to do politics for people that are underrepresented, under blah blah blah, just for the sake of it. But I'm just trying to implement the best system I have found in my brain that would work for the largest number of people to be genuinely happy.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are very wealthy would probably still be very wealthy with a lot less, if the overall the mental space and the thought universe would be open for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of how much. So now we're having we're living in times where it is cool to want more and more and more and more. It has been going on for a long time. That is not what I find helpful.
In a way, I think I find similarity between, if a project is so personally meaningful to you, it doesn't really matter how many people are attracted to it, and like, it's still worth pursuing if you have the means and if you're in the position to pursue it.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, there's also ways of like doing it smartly, so you can attract more people who like, and convince people to stand on your side, because it's essentially still a social project that there has to be enough people on your side to push the tide forward as well. So, but then there is this aspect of, if it's so personally meaningful, you will pursue it.
Yes.
And right through the up and downs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think that's very important I learned that, well, not the hard way, but I was very lucky in my life. I haven't learned anything the hard way, really. Or maybe I don't learn the hard way. I just learned the pleasant way. But yes, absolutely true. The perceived success of what you're doing is exactly the same metric than the recognition you want when you do your great lawyer, doctor, bio, whatever stuff. It is just you're conditioning your project by the thoughts and the attitude of other people, which may be a good guideline to improve it, or it's good to learn from others, but it shouldn't keep you doing from what you really want to do. And as you said, if you really find that works for you,
mm-hmm.
and that it makes you feel good, and it makes you feel happy or fulfilled, or not half full but like more full,
mm-hmm.
or just even a little bit better, then you should probably do it, and not moan about how little you're being understood. No one we are all misunderstood. We're all on our own, So how wonderful is it when we sometimes meet and, have a few minutes or a few hours of, exchange where we share the time and we share it's like, oh, yeah, right. Oh, Mengshi said that. Yeah. Same as me. Okay. So if we feel it, maybe there are even others, and then you go like, yeah.
I think the best relationships are like feeling understood by the other. It's nothing about like obligation or like it's just if people are willing to try to understand each other, I think that's the best of I think also you said that people always have this excuse in a way like of being busy. Last time we talked, you seem to reject that notion. Like if something is important, you will make time for it. How have you always been like that, or it's something that you realized and learned?
No, I think that's. I've never felt like all the time under pressure. I think that's very helpful. So when I was young, we were bored all the time, which was a dreadful feeling then. But in hindsight, it was a good feeling somehow. It worked somehow for me. So we were bored, and we would do something, and then we'd do something different. So the time was plenty, and we were like 0 years old in our minds, and we would become 200. So what? It doesn't really matter. You have so much time.
Yeah.
As a student, also, I was lucky enough to be. Yeah, probably there's a gender aspect to it. So it was okay for me to be like just okay-ish as a student and not be very, very good. Like many of my, female colleagues were very good, and I was just good. And that was like culturally accepted. So I think I was never pushed into a life rhythm that would be unbearable. So I've just tried to keep it that way, other than for work sometimes, where I need to work very quickly for, do a sprint or sometimes a marathon or sometimes 2 in a row. But that's just temporarily, and it's linked to my work, and that still allows me to at least, put some priorities in the things I do. Not everyone can do that. If you're working so I'm self-employed, that's a choice.
Yeah.
It takes a different mindset than if you're employed. It has disadvantages, but one of the advantages that you keep, if you want, control of your time. And to me, that is becoming more and more, now that I see that I'm slowly but surely running out of time, in a way, not today or not like in the near future, I hope, but time becomes a preoccupation, the time you've left. So for me, it's very important not to postpone the moment where I manage my time in accordance with my needs until 65 or whenever I stop working, or hopefully before. Well, who knows? But so
You're working on other things probably.
Yeah, but like when we discussed last time, and we were trying to find a date or for something, or I don't know what exactly the context of the discussion was, but yes, you're right. I mean, it's so, if you like to do something, in my opinion, and that sounds like old guy gives piece of advice, but yes, that's a piece of advice. If you really strongly feel about something, don't put it in the back of your priority list, because that's not consistent with your feeling. So either you don't feel about it, or you're just very badly organized. There's many people who a number of reasons, but I think if you want to do something, and like a project, how you do so many projects, maybe a word on project. So I think like what is this a project? it's a thought you had. It's like a half-baked thing.
Yeah.
And you or I or someone else worked something out and then dares to share it with someone, saying like, I have a project and it consisting doing this and that or whatever it is. That's cool. That's really, that's creative. That's, like, you can have too many, you can have too little. They can be of any nature, but it's so cool to have a project. I'm happy that, I can hide my creativity in Gantt chart terms. Like, I have a project, I must be a project manager. It's really, it sounds to me like it's important for me. If I have a project around something that I'm interested, it must be important. If I choose another area, then it's probably not important and I shouldn't have thought about it. And then when it's important, well, then, do it. Because what I've learned in my 2-year journey of trying to produce something tangible is that for some reason I haven't started yet doing the things.
Yeah.
They are ready. They are, they are prepared. Everything is there, and I'm even pushing to move forward. And despite that, there's nothing in me holding me back. And even in that long period of time, I haven't managed to do or to start implementing, the physical part of the project, which is important. I think symbolically is important because it gives you a sense of, oh, I can tick the box. And so imagine if you don't have time if you can't make time for a meeting of what are meetings, half an hour to 3 hours, it's more. If you don't have time for a meeting in a day, you have to think about what is more important, and then you say, okay, it's not about being important, but it's, I cannot afford to do this. And then you come up with all your excuses. And once you've, used your family, your boss, your kids, everything as an excuse not to do stuff that you want to do, maybe then you realize, or maybe not, that it's not about the others, it's really about you. And if you want to do that, you should do it, because if you don't, it will bite you in the ass. It will tell you one day, oh, I always wanted to do that. And it will, put you in some stress with yourself, and you're like, oh, I did not live the life that I wanted to live. That's exactly what I wanted to avoid. When I was young. I don't know how I could have like a grown-up's thought like that, but I really had it. That I would be, I would become bitter, and it would be unbearable for me and for others if I didn't, play along for some time, or forever. For all I care, between this and that, I choose that. Okay, simplicity. At least, I will be in a good mood, and I was in a good mood. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm just
Yeah, I think I relate to that a lot. If there's something you want to do, the time is to do it now. Given that you don't have like too many things going on, because I've been on this creative journey for a long time now, and what I realize is also that there's something. Like the things I want to do is also changing. There's something that I'm deeply passionate about. Maybe 10 years ago, I wanted to build a trailer home and then like drive around America like by myself. But I didn't get to do that, like because of many reasons. But now I don't want to do that anymore. Like, it's just like I've moved on from that version of me. But the thing is, if I did that, I would have a portfolio that has like, okay, this is the trailer I built back then. But now I don't have anything other than talking about it, And then the other thing is, I don't want to build a trailer anymore.
And that's your
Yes.
right. Like I mean, we seem to understand each other very well, but I really can relate to the, to this strange feeling when you are passionate about something, and then you suddenly let loose and you feel bad. And when you explore this strange feeling, why do we feel bad? Stopping something that we openly said we would like. And is it the judgment of the people around you? Is it the people saying like, yeah, but you always said that you would do this and now you didn't do it?
Mhm.
It depends probably on
Yeah.
the people, but my feeling is that people around us, other than the very, very closest people that know us and live with us a lot of time every day physically, and other than these people don't really have an attention span to document your life and then to say like, okay, well, you're planned some time ago. Yeah, some psychopaths do it. I mean, apologies to all the psychopaths in your audience, but some people may do that. But it's not. It's a fear that we have in our minds, and much more than a fear that is existing in the real
Yes.
world.
Exactly.
No one
Yeah.
will blame you for it. No one will
Yeah.
care what you do and
Yeah.
what you don't
No
do.
one. And yeah, exactly. And so like we convince ourselves
Yeah.
all the time that if we do this, we will be ostracized by the society.
Yeah.
Everyone will hate us. But in reality, no one cares.
Yeah. No one
So
cares. So people, yeah, at best, no one care. No, at best, actually, people care, or they don't really care in the sense that they would start reacting in the way that we have anticipated, like in a negative way, and
yeah,
be like, oh, yeah, push you out of
yeah,
the circle. But with my when I had outed myself completely politically, and I could see my face on big posters along the road to Echternach. It was a strange feeling to see yourself. It's like your moment of fame. Well, then it's out. Everyone knows, and people start recognizing you, and it does something strange with you too. It didn't happen so much. I'm still quite
you're famous.
yes, but yeah, and so that there I had like, I thought that there would be some pushback, but there was not. There was none.
Yeah,
There was like really none.
Yeah.
And not because I'm cool, but just because there is typically none in this kind of environment. Keeping in mind, I'm an old white man, so if I had been an old white woman, the reactions might have been different, because that's easier to, to be, express some criticism, and then, so I'm aware of all the privileges that are attached to me. But what I'm saying is that, what I'm trying to say is that very often our fears of the perception of others is much bigger than the actual reaction.
I think we make up these stories in our head.
And it probably at some stage in our lives, it was helpful to, you make them up in the sense that you really like the French say faire mousser. So you really you're rubbing the soap until it's really foaming and it's getting more and more and more. And you probably need that to make it clear what the ultimate consequence of your acts might be, or something like that. But I think we all do it all the time, and it's always so disappointing how little people take notice of what we're doing. And yes, so that's encouraging also. If you
liberating.
Exactly,
Yes.
it's liberating. So I it's much more fun now to, when I start telling people, from my legal background, that I'm writing the notes for my first script, and that I would like to. It's a good story to tell, of course. There's because people, it's
The contrast.
it's a contrast, and then it's also, like it's like Formula One or cinema. It's like the glamorous world. It's not, it's you see what we have been doing with in our small project. It was not glamorous, and it was still so much fun. It was cool if you like it. So if you like something, you will find it. You will find it. You don't want to miss it. So it's
Yeah, that's inspiring. So looking ahead, what's your vision for the future of Luxembourg's cultural landscape? And how do you see your own role evolving through this dynamic environment?
I don't think that I have like a bullet point vision for the cultural development of Luxembourg, but I have a few hopes, and they go in the direction of what I try to stand for. I think that the the most important thing for us as a society is to create what we said before. We create spaces for meeting, and we should also create spaces for for exhibition, for showing stuff, art, gotta show something. And these spaces, they exist. There's many galleries and museums, and it's commercial and it's public, but these spaces, they deserve to be something important for more people.
Celebrated.
Yes. And not with the emphasis of people should educate themselves and go and see an exhibition, but in the sense that it should be the other way around, and that cultural items of importance are being made available and accessible and understandable by a larger number of people. That's what I mean. And so that is something that is happening. It's not in Luxembourg, but I think it's happening everywhere. We have a better understanding of how things work, and we have a better sensitivity of understanding the hurdles that we build into our institutions. Hurdles of you need to be able to walk up the ramp or the stairs until you need to have studied this and that to appreciate this or that. That's not wrong per se, but that is just one facet of art, culture, of this thing. So I think that the people should remain in the center of the focus and of the efforts, young and old and foreign. And so I'm not saying this is not, it's not a criticism, but like you asked me, what is the vision? So I see more spaces and more places where this is happening naturally without requiring a lot of funding, or without requiring specific buildings or specific names or formats. But that can also exist, but just recognizing other forms of expressing ourselves, of other people expressing themselves, and making people, helping to make people become more aware of the power of these symbols, of these artifacts that we have, and it doesn't really matter where they're from.
I think I find Luxembourg so intriguing. I also get some surface level comments like Luxembourg is boring, or it doesn't have a lot of culture. But I find the complete opposite. It's just maybe the individual has to be more active in finding and digging into these things, and maybe some collaborative projects can bring people together to like really exchange and establish these spaces to allow that exchange from the both sides. And I just see like so much potential in this landscape. I sometimes I go to an event, or sometimes I host my own event as well, and then we would sit together, around 10 people, and every single one is from a different country, very different social background, very different, like, I mean, half female, half male, like just the diversity aspect and the willingness to communicate with each other is really there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a very big potential in
Yeah.
terms of bridging this like so-called gap we're discussing. Yeah, and I hope, like, I really can also see myself maybe doing something valuable
I
in
hope
that
you will.
space.
I
Yes.
definitely hope you will. I mean,
Yeah.
you're creating spaces like this podcast, and you're creating other spaces where you show and where you interact and where you lead or follow. I think that's exactly what we all should do, and it doesn't have to be big, because if the world was full of people like who would just do big things, we would have nothing else to do but just to follow everyone to
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
I think what was missing from my explanation from this this vision of this cultural landscape, culture in the broadest sense. I think what you just said is very true. To have it, keep it human, small, make it 3 people, and it's good.
Yeah.
Give every size a recognition, decentralize it, deprogram it. I mean, nothing against programs and people who have great creative skills in planning cool exhibitions. That's fine, but that's not everything, and it's not for everyone at every moment in his life. So I think we need an even bigger diversity of art and cultural events of all sorts, and that is something we can all contribute to by just saying, I have a project. We said it before.
Yeah.
This is my project. Come and join, and just enjoy how that feels when the people actually come, and then you are together and around your project or anyone's project. Doesn't really matter. It just feels good.
Yeah.
So I think that's it's very valuable, and it can probably be used. It's probably also very useful for all kinds of purposes, like making people happier, educational purposes, so many things. It's just So yeah, I don't have this experience that you just described, where organizing my own events, and but I think it's absolutely true. And the other thing is that this having so much cultural entertainment, like these always the like some there's an expectation for people just to hear the same symphonies, or to watch the same whatever theater pieces or operas or whatever they're into, and that is one quite narrow band of the cultural spectrum and the possibilities. So I think it's important to actively, as a society, so the responsibility also goes to our leaders, to promote this bigger base, cultural base, and not just go for this. Now it's good because now it's in the Philharmonie, or nothing against the Philharmonie, but I think that is getting rid of this idea that it needs to be like validated from some intellectual authority before it's art, or before it's culture.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it doesn't matter. It's
people
like,
feel it.
Yes, and don't take that away from them. Don't tell them. Again, I'm not fond of most of the things, personally, I would not be fond of many of the things that would come to existence in the world that I imagine. But it's not, I don't want a world for me and for me to like, people do stuff that I like. That's not the point. The point is that, if everyone, but most people, most of the time together, get along around something they like, they will be open, peaceful, friendly, productive, happy, and healthy, and everything. So I think that's this balance where people are not under stress, where they're not under pressure, where they don't feel unappreciated, invisible, pushed aside, and stepped upon. That's the exact opposite. So art and culture is not sufficient to do that. It's also socioeconomics and, raising salaries of, but it's not you even don't go to university for this job. Yeah, but we're lacking people to do these jobs. So can we maybe do the market trick and pay them more? No, that's not possible. No, that's not. So we are stuck in these, in these structures that we have created. And, I'm not saying that this is all, this can change very quickly, but it's definitely worth challenging the idea of these structures, because most of the time they're just there for some, administrative reason, or because it's easier to do it this way or organize it this or the other way. So, but after a while you forget, and then it is just like that, but it's always been like that. We all hear these sentences, and that's not a good reason for something to remain the same and remain untouched and unquestioned.
Yeah, so it's promoting individual self-mastery.
Yeah.
It's a profound social act.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds very good. Yeah, that's a good explanation. You should, maybe print the first T-shirts with like, I am attempting to to promote the mastery of
individuals, and then the society will be better because of it.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it's and just maybe to round it up, there is this whole industry that makes people find the best version of themselves, and all that, just putting additional pressure on how you should be in order to be functional in a largely strange world, disorientating, maybe sometimes dysfunctional world. I think your suggested definition contains a vector that is like social progress, which is really making the whole thing meaningful. Because if you do the same things, you're trying to find the best version of yourself, and you do it with a purpose and in the context of trying to change your environment around you immediately and further away to change that gives the whole thing a very different edge, twist, and spin, and then it works. I think then it can work, and it's the same thing. But if it's just like focused on yourself,
yes, yeah, exactly. It's
not a big fan.
Very important. Okay. Thank you very much. It has been a wonderful discussion today. Yeah, thank you so much.
Very, very much. Very, very pleased to have been here. Very honored. Thank you very much for your very well prepared questions, and for your meaningful comments. And thank you very much. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.